Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge. I hope you're all doing very well this morning because we've got lots and lots and lots to talk about. We're going to be talking about a Mason Greenwood swap. We're going to be talking about Karim Benzema being open to a transfer to Manchester United. We're also going to be talking about the situation with Choupo-Moting, the situation with Antony, Manchester United potentially knocking out players in relation to Scott McTominay, but also Ineos apparently have, they've removed somebody who's involved in transfers. The world is chanting Ineos changes here. The truth is a little bit different. I mean, again, I've got to say that I think sometimes you've got to look at a story and go, are we being fair here? Are we doing this the right way? Because they have removed somebody who was involved in the financial situation with Manchester United. But by all accounts, he was involved in the women's team and the youth setup. So, you know, people have got to be a little bit even-handed here because, you're taking a pop at somebody you didn't know anything about before and now you're screaming and shouting that change is happening. Change is happening, but it's not always as you think it is. So, yeah, thanks everyone for that. I don't know what's going wrong here. Let me... I've just got a problem with my... I don't know what's going on here. What's going on? Sorry. Well, anyway, look, lots to talk about. We're going to talk about Benzema. We are live. I just didn't know whether we were live there. Let me just make sure that we are. Bit of a slow start this morning. Okay. Let me go there. And yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. Issues with that. Okay, let's get back to the chat. Okay, right, let's start off with it. Sorry about that. I don't normally get lost in a story like that. Rafina better be for Antony, says Wizard. And Joe Nanny says, I need a membership. You're already a member, mate. I'd take Benzema for 6 months, says Carl Ross. Well, let's start off with this story. It's on the United Stand this morning. Scott McTominay's a new contract, by the way. We're going to be talking about that, and we're going to talk about the stats as to why it would be criminal to give him a new contract. But we will be talking about that. So this is coming from L'Equipe, which is a French outlet. They're saying that Karim Benzema's entourage have denied claims that the Frenchman is seeking an exit from Al Ittihad. However, should the former Real Madrid forward leave, Manchester United is a viable option. So, I mean, it's sort of like, no, you're not having that for dinner, but you could have it for dinner, if that makes sense. So I don't know what that actually means, but Benzema to United reminds me of a Murtaugh move, says Chris. I don't think for 1 second we're going to see Benzema signing for Manchester United, but it's an interesting update. His situation in Saudi Arabia is very, very fragile. As Fabrizio told us 2 days ago on this channel, Benzema is training on his own at the moment. It's interesting that his entourage are saying that he's unlikely to leave Saudi because Fabrizio said he may well move to a different club in Saudi. But obviously Manchester United is an option. That sounds to me, when I read that back, and I'm very experienced in this, as I'm sure many of you are, when his entourage are saying that, an exit from Al Ittihad isn't imminent, but if he was to leave, then Man United could be a viable option. That, to me, is just pure and utter generate interest, because if I was his agent, I would say, no, he's not going anywhere. He's happy with where he is when you're trying to get him out. And then I'd go, yeah, of course Man United would be an option if he was available. That doesn't mean Man United are going to assign him. And as I said, he's on, what, is he on like £2 million a week or something like that? Not going to happen. Not going to happen. And I think we should move on for it and not get drawn into something. Only an idiot wouldn't take Benzema at Manchester United for 6 months. I mean, we're probably going to end up with Choupo-Moting or nothing. So, of course, you're going to take Benzema at Manchester United. But I don't see it happening. But it's interesting that his entourage are saying that Man United would be a viable option. But we haven't got the money to do that. And also, I think, if we're being honest, and I've got to be supportive of this, I don't think Ineos would go anywhere near this deal. I don't think they would. What about Benzema is attractive to a club that is trying to save money? We spoke about this a couple of nights ago. You sell McTominay, you sell Greenwood, it's pure profit. There's probably 70, 80 million in your pocket. You sell Varane, you sell Maguire, they're older players, you remove big wages and you get a bit of money in your pocket. You know, you boost your transfer fee, you boost your transfer budget. You bring Benzema in, you blow it all. Everything you make, you blow on somebody who's short-termism. I mean, this is the old Manchester United. I don't see this. I don't see this happening at all. I'd be stunned if it did happen. But look, we're here to deliver you the news. We're also going to be talking about this potential new Scott McTominay contract. Apparently, he's won Erik ten Hag over. He's been seen as one source said, one of the few bright points of a dismal season. United have seen a new side to his game with his scoring ability this season. Well, I'm going to tell you a factual side to McTominay's game in a moment, and you can decide whether he should be getting a new contract or not, because I think that it sort of fits in with what I was talking about last night, didn't it? About what happens with John Murtough, what happens with Darren Fletcher, what happens with Scott McTominay, what happens with other players as well. Are Ineos ruthless, or are they a little bit ruthless and a little bit mates rates? Because if we're going to be ruthless, then Scott McTominay needs to go. It's £25 million you can spend on a better player. If we're going to keep a cheerleader, then, you know, let's carry on like we have done for the last 10 years. That's my opinion. Are we ruthless, or are we a bit ruthless and a bit mate rates? Because there is no... I tell you what, if you presented this deal, if you presented a 25 million offer for Scott McTominay from West Ham to Jurgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola or Mikel Arteta or Ange or anyone else, they'd say, give me the money. What's the argument? So we'll talk about that in a moment. But also a couple of other things as well. I'm telling you now, you're not going to like this. I'm going to tell you this now, right? MUFC MPB, I messaged him last night, really good account, but he put a tweet out last saying that Man United are actively looking to sell Anthony in the summer. I messaged him, I've not heard back. It's not true, mate. I don't know where that source is coming from. It's not true. Manchester United are not trying to sell Anthony in the summer. You might want that to happen, and maybe it could happen. But in January, Man United are not trying to sell Anthony in the summer. This is from Manchester United. Like, we've been given this information from Manchester United, and we put it out there 2 days ago. They are not actively looking to sell Anthony at the moment. It's a fact. And also, it makes complete sense because it's January. We don't have a director of football. We have Erik ten Hag, and Erik ten Hag loves Anthony. So who would be actively looking to sell Anthony in the summer when we don't have a director of football? We've got John Murtough who bought him, and we've got Erik ten Hag who likes him. Man United's situation with Anthony at the moment is not to sell him in the summer. Until we get a new director of football in and they have a decision making on Ten Hag and certain players, we are not looking to move him on. And also, from an FFP point of view, it would be suicide. We've spent £80 million on him. We haven't even paid it off. We've not paid it off yet. He's only been here 18 months. We haven't even paid a large proportion of that transfer off. And people think we're going to sell him for 30 million. We would be screwed with FFP to sell Anthony for 30 million. So, look, you might want Anthony to go. You might want Greenwood to come back. You might want Rashford to be sold. You might want Onana to be sold. But none of these things are actually going to happen if you screw your head on and understand what happens at Manchester United, regardless of whether it's the Glazers or Ineos. Then nobody's up for sale at the moment because we haven't got people in to start making those decisions. The next big significant thing United need to do is appoint the director of football, and then decisions will be taken on players. Linnell, welcome to the Members Club. You're the first one today. You're an absolute legend. Get your badge in the chat. Really appreciate that. Also, can I just talk to you about Chopper mooting? Again, look, I get so many people asking me about this. Absolutely correct. If we're going to bring anybody in, then it will be of course, Chopper mooting. I think that's absolutely understood. But let me just read you this. This is from Laurie Whitwell, and it's from The Athletic. The hiring of a sporting director and head of recruitment to work under Barada is expected to be the next task for Sir David Brailsford. Dan Ashworth, with whom Brailsford has an established relationship from their work together at the Football Association in 2016, has been linked, but he recently gave colleagues at Newcastle the impression he will continue in the role. As discussions continue over the identities of potential incoming executives, Ineos representatives are also strengthening connections with agents. John Thompson, Ineos Sports project manager, assists Brailsford and has been at a presence at Carrington in helping to arrange logistics. On the pitch, there is no sense that Ineos is writing off off this season. Ratcliffe and his team want United to qualify for the Champions League because of prestige, but also to help significantly with financial fair play. The tightness of the numbers in why there is so little movement around signings, despite loan approaches for De Ligt and Choupo-Moting being mentioned. Once Premier League ratification arrives with early February earmarked, Ineos representatives are expected to speak publicly, including on the future of manager Erik ten Hag. I mean, that's just basically, it's a little bit more depth, but it's what we all know from Laurie there, to be fair. We're not going to do anything in the transfer market. We're not going to do anything around Ten Hag until we have something happening. And to be fair, that doesn't sound as good as it did do around Dan Ashworth, but I still think that that's Manchester United's obsession to do that. Of course, I don't think there's any doubt of that. I also think that people will jump on the fact that Whitwell's article says that in early February, Ineos will speak publicly, including on the future of Ten Hag. I think that the wording of that could be better, if I'm being honest. Of course, and I would say that that doesn't mean what people think it is. Sir Jim can't talk about the toilets at Old Trafford. Sir Jim can't talk about, anything at the moment because he's not been Premier League ratified. Of course he's going to talk about the manager when he's in because he can't talk about anything at the moment. Some people will think in February, he's going to walk in and go, Ten Hag's fired. He won't say that. He won't say that. He'll be like, we want to build a team. So I don't think there's anything new in that. Sunk cost fallacy, says Rory C. The phenomenon whereby a person is reluctant to abandon a course of action because they have invested heavily in it, even when it is clear that abandonment would be more beneficial, says Rory C. There we go. I think I know what he's talking about there as well. Danish has been a member for 19 months. Great show. What's your view on Choupo-Moting as a player? He doesn't seem exciting. What would he bring to the team other than experience? Well, I was talking about Choupo-Moting. I want to talk about a few other bits on the show this morning as well in relation to this McTominay potential new deal. We've spoken of Benzema and Anthony already. I want to talk about this Greenwood potential swap as well. That's a news piece this morning in the UK. But in relation to Choupo-Moting, what I would say about him is that a lot of people are just desperately trying to find news. I understand that. It has been a very, very, very quiet January transfer window for a lot of people so far. And I don't think any of us can deny that. However, if we are to make a move for a striker, it will be Choupo-Moting. But as per usual, there is no development on this at the moment. There is a week of this January transfer window to go. There is an expectation that things will happen. I think Pelistri's future is probably the most at-hand thing for Manchester United at the moment. Choupo-Moting would, of course, be very interested in coming to Manchester United, but that's about it, But there is no active talks going on at the moment. I think if we're going to do anything about this, we'll be talking about this after the weekend. God. I hate sneezing. I've actually realised in life I hate sneezing. I've got some sort of allergy and it really annoys the shit out of me. I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that. But look, this is a big story that everybody's getting really excited about. And I've got to be fair. If you knew who Sam Barnett was before last night, then you're a liar. Negotiations manager Sam Barnett has left the club after 7 years, 3 of which were spent in that role. Barnett was active in negotiations for player contracts and signings, and was also a player accountant from 2016 to 2020. Now, people who don't really understand anything about how Manchester United Football Club runs have, in my opinion, been very unfair on Sam Barnett over the last night and this morning. Almost running around their front garden with their scarves going, we've got rid of the guy who's been the problem. We haven't got rid of the guy who's been the problem. If you understand football, there are so many people involved at Manchester United that have been involved in the last 10 years of wasting £1 billion. You can name John Murtaugh, Richard Arnold, Ed Woodward, numerous other people. And I think we've got to be better than this. If you want to stick your head in the corporate world of Manchester United, do your bloody research. I mean, it's pitiful to see on social media, people haven't got a bloody clue about how United has been run over the last 10 years, going, yes, we're cooking, that's another one gone. And actually, whilst he had a little bit of involvement in contract negotiations, he wasn't the guy flying out to Ajax and giving Anthony 200 grand a week. He wasn't the guy, giving, Leicester £80 million for Harry Maguire. Like, these decisions get signed off at the very, very top by the CEO and by the Glazers. Old Sam Barnett can't just roll up to Dortmund and say, Sancho, there's 350k a week and there's 75 million pounds for Dortmund. Let's go. And the Glazers don't know about it. It's, we've got to be a little bit better than this, because we can't just castigate and hang somebody out to dry that you didn't even know who they were yesterday. We're better than this as a fan base. And look, apparently he was more involved with the women's side of things and youth recruitment than actually the first team for a start. So fact check is very important. And I just think at the moment there is this hysteria around the change at Manchester United that anybody who's moved on is the enemy and, they were the problem. And this is my problem. Are we going to get rid of everybody, or are we going to get rid of some people and then keep some of the shit? Because that, to me, is very reminiscent of what we're going to talk about with Scott McTominay. This story that we're going to talk about in a few minutes' time about, they want to keep McTominay and get more players like McTominay into the club with the similar attitude. I'm like, we're never going to win a fucking thing then, are we? Because he is not good enough to win a title at Manchester United. So on the one hand, we're making great changes by removing somebody we didn't even know who's an accountant. And on the other hand, we're giving a new contract to Scott McTominay. So where are we winning here? Like, we need to clear everything out or not bother at all, in my opinion. But look, I didn't know who this guy was before. Spoke to somebody this morning. They said, look, yeah, definitely had a touch point on contract negotiations, etc., but was more involved with the youth and the women's team. And actually, nobody at that level would have the power to say, I don't care what the Glazers say, I don't care what Richard Arnold says, we're paying these wages. Ultimately, the major responsibility falls on Ed Woodward, Richard Arnold and the Glazers for the last 10 years. Absolutely. Absolutely, that's what it's all about. Taff, welcome to the Members Club. You absolute legends. Get your badge in. And Parvishan as well. Absolute legends. Thank you very much for supporting the channel and getting your badges in the chat. Lovely to see that. Mickey Moo Productions, who's one of our members, says the tea lady went last week. United are on the up. Love it. And Junior Films is a member as well. He says, how's Brian? And Rob says, change when? Exactly. And I agree with Mark Harris, who says this reset will take years and years. Strap in, which is better than strap on, although some people might quite like that. X-Simp's a member and says, why are we looking at backbench players? We probably have better players in the youth right now than almost anyone we can get on loan. Well, yeah, maybe. Look, all I'd say about Chopper Mooting is that if we're going to bring anybody in this transfer window, then I suspect it probably will be Chopper Mooting. That's what I would think. Anyway, let's talk about this story. It's actually, I apologise, I mean, it's actually featured as the first bit of the title, and we haven't even spoke about it yet. So, Greenwood swap deal, what's this all about? So, reports this morning coming in that Manchester United could well be looking at a swap deal with Mason Greenwood and Barcelona. We touched on this a little bit last night, that Barcelona could potentially make a move for Mason Greenwood in the summer. He's done reasonably well in La Liga, and Barcelona are looking for that type of a profile player. There's no question that there is interest in La Liga from Mason Greenwood, because that's where he's playing. And I would liken it to this. If Barcelona had a player that was very talented and was 22 and had been in a bit of trouble in Barcelona, and they couldn't have him playing for them anymore, and they loaned him to Everton, and he was doing well at Everton, and we were going, well, Barcelona want to sell him in the summer, there's a deal to be done here, I'd expect Man United to be probably looking at it. And that's basically the reverse of this. Mason Greenwood's a talented player. Barcelona don't necessarily have loads and loads of money. They're trying to revolutionise themselves. They're not doing that well at the moment. They may well be looking, well, they will be looking at Mason Greenwood. Now, what would Manchester United be able to do as a swap deal? Well, this is what this article's talking about. The names like Rafinha have been mentioned. Arahu has been mentioned, who I always get the name wrong. Look, maybe Frankie de Jong could even be back on the equation. I don't know. But Swap deals, I've got to say, are ridiculously, and we haven't got a great record with swap deals. I mean, Sanchez for Mkhitaryan didn't work out, did it? But swap deals are they're not that rare. They're quite rare, aren't they? Let's be honest. I mean, they happen on FIFA and they happen on Football Manager, and they're quite simple to do on there because it's just a game. But in real life, swap deals are very, very difficult to do because you're actually better off selling the player and then buying a player than trying to work a swap deal where you've got multiple representatives and you're just doubling everything up, and it becomes very difficult. And I loved, that Sanchez Mkhitaryan deal was very exciting, but actually it took a lot longer than it should have done because Mkhitaryan's side were digging their heels in for all sorts of stuff. The Sanchez side was quite straightforward to do. So I don't see the point in swap deals, really. I'm not convinced about Rafinha. I feel he's a bit of a Barca reject if they want to get rid of him. Arahu, I don't think Barcelona would look to get rid of, and also the same with De Jong. So if Barcelona want Mason Greenwood and we're going to sell Mason Greenwood, take them for every penny we can get. Like, take 50 million if we can. If that's what we can get, take the money and reinvest it. We don't need to be doing swap deals. Barcelona is not the only shop available and open in the summer. We don't need to look at Barcelona and go, oh, what have you got? What might work? This is not the way we need to work as a football club. If we're going to sell Greenwood, take the cash and be looking all around the world, not just at Barcelona. I love this window. I'm tired of spending Premier League overall, says Harold. Robbo is a new member and so is Mr. Sell. Absolute legends. Thank you very much. Oh, can I just say, I'm going to shout it out at the end of the video as well, but we are starting something in the podcast space. It's called Goldbridge Saves Football. If you want to get on this, then please do support it. Links in the live chat. Download it for later. Give it a listen. It's a general football podcast, but I think it's going to explode the same way that That's Football and United Stand have. Really at it, on it, conversations about issues in football, topical stuff as well. I know some of you listen to it anyway, but so many people are listening to it in January, and I want it to be massive. I want it to be big, because the bigger that is, the bigger voice you've got when you're talking about VAR, FFP, and all the issues in football. So very different to what I do on That's Football on United Stand. It's me and Will Brazier on there, and we're loving doing it, and we're loving everybody who's getting involved in it. So if you've not listened to it yet, Goldbridge Saves Football, give it a listen. This week's episode was particularly good, and you can download it for free and give it a listen. Thank you very much. No to Rafinha, says Fam. Lots of people saying that as well. A lot of people agreeing with me. Take the 50 million, take the 40 million, and use the money. Exactly. I think United need to raise money. We don't need to be swapped. We don't need to be doing swap deals this year. Next story I want to talk about is this is coming in that Manchester United and Ineos and Ten Hag want to give Scott McTominay a new contract. Apparently, he's won over Ten Hag. And Ineos are interested in rewarding McTominay with a new contract and bringing in more players of his ilk, i.e. British players. Now, I don't know about this. I mean, I've got to say, pinch of salt here. Not the McTominay thing. I guarantee we'll give him a bloody new contract. I mean, I just don't get it. And I'm only going to talk about stats here, because you get the word agenda comes out, and then you get people going, well, how is it that Sir Alex, Carrick, Mourinho, Rangnick, Ollie, and Ten Hag like him, but you don't? I think I'll listen to them, and I'll go, that's absolutely fine. You make a great point, but I've been watching him for the last 8 years, and I don't get it. So you're right. Carrick, Sir Alex, Mourinho, Rangnick, Ten Hag, Ollie, they all do pick him, but I watch the games and I don't get it. I just don't understand it. But I'm sure they will give him a new contract, and to me that would be a big red flag to the new ownership of Ineos, because I just don't get that. I don't see how that's moving forward. I just don't get it at all. Apparently, one source has been quoted as saying McTominay's one of the few bright spots this season in a dismal season, and this goal side to his game has been a really good thing, and that he's won Erik Ten Hag over. I mean, look, I had to do this because it's only fair. Gabrielle, one of our members, says, and moderators, the eye test says it all. It's good they're trying to tie down our top scorer, says Robert McCormack, who I knew would be in here this morning. But look, let me just do this. I went on to my stats thing, which we did, which we started bringing into shows now, and I thought, am I missing something here with Scott McTominay? He has scored goals this season. There's no doubt about it. But are we missing something here? Is there something that our eyes are deceiving? Well, look, let me just go through some. Scott McTominay's a midfielder. As a number 10, he infuriates me. He's got 0 assists at all. He's not creative. So as a number 10, he's slow, he can't hold the ball up, and he doesn't create. What McTominay is very good at is being in the box, and if the ball falls to his feet, he's very good. If we all agree on that and start with the positive, if McTominay gets a shot in the box, he's actually very good at it. That's why he's got goals this season. Could you play Scott McTominay up front? Absolutely not. Too slow, hasn't got any link-up play, can't run the channels, you can't play him up front. Can you play him as a number 10? Absolutely not. He's not creative, he's not quick enough again, he hasn't got the dexterity, he hasn't got the finesse, he hasn't got the control. So he can't play up front, and he can't play as a number 10, but he's good in the box. So where do you play him? His role is last 15 minutes when you want to pump the ball in the box. It worked against Brentford. He got one against Sheffield United. Scrappy do against crappy teams. Should Manchester United be keeping a plan B to throw on for the last 15 minutes of a game? I don't think they should. I think they should cash in. You could argue that keeping a player like that works because it's a different option. But I don't see Liverpool throwing in Peter Crouch anymore. I don't see Man City throwing on Peter Crouch anymore. I don't see Arsenal throwing in that anymore. I don't see Brighton doing it. Teams don't have that plan B anymore. It's archaic. It's old. Teams don't have a big hitman to just chuck on for the last 15 minutes anymore. They have a principle. Pep, De Zerbi, Emery, Arteta, Klopp. Managers actually have a plan. Ange doesn't, for the last 15, he was down to 9 men and he still played a high line. He doesn't go, right, get Eric Dyer on and everybody, let's park the bus. Managers don't have these plan Bs anymore. It's old style football. You have your principles that you work on in the week and you don't have much time to work on anything else. So if somebody doesn't work, you make a couple of subs who come on and do the same thing that the players aren't doing for you. You stick to your principles. That's what Pep does. So I don't think we need a plan B McTominay anymore. I don't think we need it. I think now's the time to cash in and send him to a club that utilises his skills. He can't be a number 10. He can't be a number 9. Because he just hasn't got the attributes. He's very good in and around the box. There's no doubt about that. But look at this statistically. So look, shots this season, he's had 1.9. Bruno's had 2.2 per game. He's averaging 1.9 shots per game. Bruno's averaging 2.2. We know everybody's greedy apart from setting up the striker. We know that. But passes per 90 for Scott McTominay, 25. He's not even in the top 100 in the Premier League for passes per 90 in the midfield area. 100! He's not even in the top 100 for passes per 90 in the midfield area. He's got 25. Gilmour at Brighton averages 73 per 90. McTominay averages 25. Even Pereira, who's a number 10 at Fulham, has 30 per 90. McTominay as a midfielder has 25. Interceptions per 90, he's 30th. So, physicality, McTominay, he is 30th for interceptions. Now, you might say 30th is bad. 30th is actually as good as it gets, really, for McTominay. So he's 30th for interceptions in midfielders in the Premier League. He gets 4.3 per game. Alvarez is top with 6.6 at West Ham. He's an absolute monster. I don't know why we didn't look at Alvarez, by the way. Don't understand why we didn't look at Alvarez. I mean, Ten Hag buys all these players from Ajax and doesn't get Alvarez, who at West Ham is an absolute monster when it comes to the physical side of games. Maybe, well, I presume he can pass. He was at bloody Ajax, but I don't know why we didn't look at him. Forward passes per 90 from McTominay, 6. Will Hughes at Crystal Palace does 9 per 90. Casemiro does 19 per 90. Forward passes. Scott McTominay does 6. 0 assists. Dribbles and progressive runs per 90, 0.9. Højbjerg does 1.3. Alexi McAllister does 1.3. So he's not progressive on the ball. He can't pass forward. He's pretty average when it comes to interceptions. He's never on the ball. He gets no assists. But he can score goals if the ball falls to him in the box. At what point does anybody with a brain at Man United go, let's give him a new contract? It's a myth. It's an absolute myth. Why are you giving him a new contract? What on what planet would you give him a new contract? And I don't know what this source is on about. He's been one of the bright spots of the season. When? When has he been a bright spot? He's been crap for the last 2 months. He scored a few goals around October, November time. But for December and January, he's been rubbish. Like most of his career. Like, he scores goals for Scotland. He scores goals against crap teams for Man United. He's a one-trick pony. He's not creative. He's not good on the ball. What are we trying to build? What are we trying to build? If you want to stick him on the bench as a last 20-minute option, I get it. But who else is doing that in the modern game? Who else is sticking a tall guy on the bench for the last 20 minutes when you want to pump long balls into the box? Nobody's doing that. I think that this type of a deal terrifies me if Ineos are going to sign that off. It's terrifying. And it worries me who's signing that deal off. Is that Sir Alex saying, keep him, he's a good lad? Because you can't, I love Sir Alex. I don't know whether it is Sir Alex, but what I'm saying is, who in the football club is telling Ineos to do that? Because that's just bad advice. Look at the stats. Look at what he is as a player. He doesn't do anything well apart from scoring goals in the box. But he's not good enough to play as a striker or as a 10 because he doesn't have the attributes. He literally is a guy that hangs around the penalty box and waits for chances, and he's good at that. But it's not enough. And I'm being positive here. He's very good in the box at shooting. But that's one trait. You need about 7 to be playing in a top 4 team, and he doesn't have it. He just doesn't have it. Why would we give this guy a new contract? It's incredible. There's better youth players that have been got rid of over the last 20 years than McTominay, and he somehow survives. And you're talking about pure profit. We need to raise money. I'm not a fan of Varane or Casemiro going in the summer because they're good players, but I get it. They're 30s. They're on big wages. But if we get rid of a Varane and we keep a McTominay, fucking hell, what's that all about? It doesn't make any sense. You can't keep cheerleaders. You've got to be ruthless. And people will say you're being very harsh this morning, but I'm doing it based on stats. I'm not doing it based on anything else. He passes the ball 25 times per game on average. 25. Most midfielders are doing it 50, 60 times per 90. And that's not one game. That's across the whole season. He's averaging 25 passes per game. Not one bad game, per game. It's horrific. Most decent midfielders are 50, 60, 70 passes per 90. I mean, Rodri's now over 100. So, we've got to have so much better than that. We've got to have more than that. I don't care. I'd get into this debate with anyone. I'd get into this debate with bloody Scott McTominay. I'm not bothered. Like, your attributes are not good enough for Manchester United. They're just not. And it doesn't make any sense why you would keep that. Does this deal show the board's lack of confidence in Ten Hag implementing his style of play, says David. And Robbo says, hi Mark, just curious, do staff wages count towards FFP rules, the new CEO, etc.? I'm sure he's on a decent pay packet. I don't think they do, Robbo. I don't actually have that answer, but I don't think they do. I mean, like, stadium infrastructure doesn't count in relation to financial fair play. Rebuilding your training ground doesn't count in relation to financial fair play. So certain things do and certain things don't. I wouldn't imagine that the salary of your CEO has got anything to do with financial fair play. I think financial fair play is very exclusively around wages and transfers. I don't think it's got anything to do with that. Lloyd says his decision making in the final third is shocking, and the red flag is on Ten Hag and his player track records as international 2675. 100%. I mean, you know, if Eric Ten Hag is saying keep Scott McTominay, then that's a bad decision by him, isn't it? But I don't know. I mean, can you remember that? You know, it's always nice to bring a bit of comedy. There was a story a couple of weeks ago, a conspiracy, that Scott McTominay comes from a very powerful family and who have got influence at Manchester United. And I was like, oh my God, it's McMafia. Look, I don't believe that for 1 minute. I think that, I know that, look, you've got to be very, very careful here because you're talking about a player that will take it personally. Of course they will. They're only human beings. But we're trying to be Man City. We're trying to be Liverpool. And therefore, I was talking about this on That's Football last night. You have to discriminate in competitive sport when it comes to talent. I mean, of course, not in relation to things that you shouldn't discriminate on. But look, when it comes to talent, you have to discriminate. You can't be fair. You have to be ruthless. And I just feel that, you know, from the people I know, everybody will say, a lot of people at United will say, look, McTominay's a lovely lad. He's really popular. Everyone likes him. Apparently he's quite moody. You know, he's quite gobby in the sense that, you know, he does get what Man United's all about and he's quite vocal about that. You know, he is effectively he's a bit of a leader in the dressing room in that sense. But unfortunately, you hear all that positive stuff. And apparently this is true. Like, he is quite moody. He is quite vocal about what the standard should be, etc. And he's very popular around the club. And all those things are great, but he ain't good enough. He's, you know, he can be gobby, he can be popular, he can be vocal, he can understand what United's all about, but he's just not good enough. Like, how many years have we been watching him now? He's 27. I think he's been playing at least 7 years. And there's been no real improvement. He's always been good in the box, by the way. I don't know what they're talking about. They've seen a new side to his game. We've always known he's good in the box. He is good in the box. He's always been good in the box. That's not new. Everything else, he's always been crap on the ball. He's always been not on the ball. He's always been bad at assists. He's always been what he is. And he should be moved on. But maybe there still is this historic vibe around Man United about this, you know, you need to have certain players around the club. You need to have good players around the club. Look, I'm no big fan of Man City, but what did Man City inherit in 2008? They didn't inherit Rashford and McTominay and Darren Fletcher and, you know, these players of the past. They built it. They built it. That's why I like the CEO. He's got no touch point with Man United at all. The last thing I wanted was some ex-player come in as CEO. I'm over the moon that we've got somebody that's over the blue moon. But I'm over the moon that we've got somebody that's just best in class. They've got nothing to do with Man United. We don't need to keep comfortable little toys who've come through the youth setup. We don't need to do that. We need to get the best. And I just don't see where Scott McTominay fits into Manchester United. There are other players as well. I just don't see where they fit in. And you can keep them around because people like them. But Sir Alex himself came in and got rid of Paul McGrath and Norman Whiteside, who were very popular players. You know, if Sir Alex has got anything to do with McTominay staying, he needs to have a look at what he did when he came in here himself. He got rid of very popular players. And that's what you need to do. That's what needs to happen at this football club. I'm absolutely not having that we should be giving Scott McTominay a new contract. And when we hear about someone else getting a new contract that I don't think should get it, then I'd say the same. If they came out and said they're going to give Rashford a new contract, he's only just had one, but if they wanted to increase it, we'd all say the same. Based on what? Like, you know, it's not just one player. I think McTominay must have slept with Eric Ten Hag's wife or something to keep playing. No, that'd be a reason to get rid of him, Robbo. Paul says, if he keeps starting McTominay, I don't know whether I can stick with him, Mark. And Son says, I bet LeBron James can play CDM better than McTominay can. Mojo's back in the chat. He's just gifted 10 memberships. You absolute legend. And thank you very much for that as well. That's why we've got a lot of W's in the chat. They were both boozers, Whiteside and McGrath, says Brian. Well, Sir Alex came in and got rid of the drinking culture at Manchester United, didn't he? That's what he did. What Ineos need to do is come in and get rid of the crap culture at Manchester United. We all know that we can all celebrate CEOs. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like United fans at the moment, we should all have a big away day to Wall Street in New York and start celebrating financial deals, because that's all we're celebrating at the moment. Oh, we've sacked another accountant. Woohoo! Woohoo! Let's get down to the real business. Let's get down to getting rid of players that aren't good enough. City always have 6 or 7 players that can head it, says Robert McCormack. Yeah, well, you make another great point, Robert. McTominay is good in the air. And I've been saying this for a long time. He gets picked because he's good in the air, because we're shit in the air. I mean, if we actually had a decent set-piece coach, I think McTominay would be gone. He does get picked because he's good in the air. He's tall. Robert is absolutely correct. And you saw it against Spurs. You know, after 5 minutes, I was like, we probably need McTominay just because he can win a header. I mean, it's a terrible... I mean, we're Stoke. But it's true. How many times have I said to you, we'll pick McTominay today, like West Ham and people like that, because he's tall? It's true. That's what we've become. If McTominay is the standard at Man United, then God help us all, says Nigel. I feel like we've spoken about McTominay a lot here because of this new contract story, but he's not the issue at Manchester United. Let's just be very, very clear. As much as McTominay needs to go, we've mentioned Sancho a lot of times. I think you have to start looking at Maguire, Varane, Casemiro because of their age and their wage. You've got to look at one of your right backs, Wan-Bissaka and Delo. You know, to be honest with you, there's rumours around Luke Shaw in the summer. I mean, I don't want to say that because it's not concrete by any stretch of the imagination, but there's talk of Luke Shaw in the summer moving on. You know, we were talking about Anthony at the start of the show in the summer. No decisions have been made on this on that at all. And also, let me just say this. You've got to be very even-handed here. You talk about a new contract for Scott McTominay. We haven't got the new director of football yet. I mean, the new director of football will have a big say on this. If the new director of football is Dan Ashworth and he gives a new contract to Harry Maguire, Scott McTominay, Casemiro and Varane, then I think people are going to look at it and go, maybe this is not the promised land. So the new director of football will have a say on this. We can speculate all we like. Fred was so much better than McTominay. Just don't know why he got sold ahead of him, says Anna Rudd. I don't know. A good point that's just been made there about McTominay is what's his actual contract he's on at the moment. And he is currently on a contract until 2025 with the option of another year. So he's ahead of... we've got to make a decision on him. Well, no, he can't leave till 2026. He can't leave for another 2.5 years. So we don't have to be giving him a new contract at the end of the day. This summer's the summer to sell him. Summer to sell him. If we don't sell him this summer, you've got to give him a new contract, definitely. Yaya says we should go for Paulina. I've spoken about him before. No issue with him. Very, very good player. But I think for the price he's going to cost, I don't think Manchester United would go near it. He's probably going to cost 60, 70 million quid. I don't see United looking at that, if I'm being completely honest. Interesting. I'm just going back to that Athletic thing that there's no sense that Ineos are writing off the season. I mean, is that? Would you write the season off at the moment? I don't know what that's all about. Why would you write the season off? We've got to be in Europe next year, and Europa League football would surely be better than no football. We're still in the FA Cup. I don't think we should be. I don't think we should be writing the season off by any stretch of the imagination at the moment. I think that there's still a lot to play for. I think the next 3 Premier League games will be absolutely massive with regards to how we perform in the the games against Wolves away and Forest at home and Villa away. Very tough games. Don Corleone made me an offer that could say no. Great show and podcast, says Tracy Taylor. Loving the support for the podcast. Get on that podcast after this. Just download it and listen to it at your leisure. On a walk. You know what? Goldbridge is getting people healthy as well. Podcasts are much better to listen to when you're on the walk or you're on the commute, or even if you want to get to bed earlier, listen to a podcast before you go to sleep. There's no lights distracting you, which is bad for you before you go to sleep. Stick it in your ears or just put it on quiet next to you in a darkened room. Listen to Goldbridge Saves Football. We've got a massive back catalogue. New episodes every Tuesday and Friday. It will improve your sleep. I'm telling you now. Marginal gains. David Brailsford will be on board. George says, stop speaking about my lover, Scooby-Doo, says George. Well, I've seen Scott McTominay's. I don't know whether it's his girlfriend or whatever, but I tell you what, he's doing well there. You can't knock that. Jim says he ain't good enough. We won't leave him alone until he's gone from the club. Says Jim's. Well, here's a question for you. If you could only get rid of 3 players this summer transfer window, who would you get rid of and why? And I need to raise money, okay? So I'm going to get rid of 3 players that are going to raise me money. So I'm going to get rid of Scott McTominay because that's going to be pure 30 million profit, and I don't think he's good enough. There's no future for him. So Scott McTominay goes. Jadon Sancho goes because it's just too risky to bring him back. I mean, it turns up for training once late next season and it all falls apart again. You know, could he go on strike again? It's just not worth it. He needs a new start. We need a new start. So Jadon Sancho as well. Hopefully get 40 million for him. You know, so Sancho, McTominay would be my 2. My third one, there's lots of good options here. You could go Maguire or Varane because they're the same age. They're on big wage and they're old. But I'd have to say if I had to choose between Maguire and Varane, it would be Maguire because Varane's better. So Maguire's a consideration. Greenwood's a consideration because it's pure profit and we haven't used him for 2 years, so you don't miss what you haven't got. And again, if you bring him back, there's going to be a load of stuff that, you know, after 6 months you might be going, we should have cashed in. So Greenwood's got to be a consideration as well. Is there anybody else that jumps out at me? I mean, look, yeah, we've got to get rid of one of our right backs. I agree. Some people would say, what about a winger? You know, I can see people saying Rashford, Anthony. I think for me, McTominay, Sancho, and Greenwood would be the 3 I would go with. And I know that's controversial, but it's not really about individuals. It's about Greenwood. I just feel like he's gone anyway, and he hasn't played for so long, and I reckon we could get 40 million for him. McTominay, obvious, we've spoken about that, and Sancho, I've spoken about that. You can have different 3s. I haven't given you the definitive there, and my focus is I've probably just raised 100 million quid. So that's massively important, and with that 100 million quid, McTominay is easily replaceable. Greenwood doesn't even play for us, and Sancho hasn't really played for us either. So I've just raised 100 million quid on 3 players that we either don't use or don't need. So that's what I would do. Fam says I'd get rid of Rashford. Well, the thing about Rashford is you might get 100 million quid, but you've got to replace Rashford. Like, Rashford actually has been a big part of our team for the last few years and the last few months, so you've got to replace him. I don't feel that McTominay, Sancho and Greenwood need replacing. You've just got 100 million quid. So that would be it for me. To get the best out of McTominay, you'd have to build the team around him, says Sam. Let's do it! We should try McTominay on the right wing, says Ali. Yep, he's well known for his assists and excellent whip on right wing crosses. Let me just read some of these out. Losey says McTominay, Rashford and Bruno. Baldwin is one of our members, says Rashford, Bruno must go this end of the season. Wow. Anana, Bruno and Anthony, says Navarone. I knew this would generate lots of different answers. Shane Smith says we ain't selling McTominay for 30 million. That ship has sailed. Wow, 20 million, 25 million. Rob says if he has a good Euros, we might get 30 again. McTominay, Sancho and Anana, says Rob, another member. Rashford is top priority to go. I think I've read that one. Rashford for me, says Matthias. Rashford, Sancho, McTominay, says Nick. and McTominay, Bruno, and Sancho, says Brian. Junior says Sancho, Scooby, and Harry, which is probably very unlikely because they're all British, aren't they? So that's very unlikely in relation to homegrown. However, just replace them with others. That was from Junior Films. McTominay, Rashford, and Sancho. There's a lot of Rashfords in here. I mean, I just don't agree with it. I think that I think Rashford could have a good end to the season and all this could change around very, very quickly. But what I would say about Rashford is what I said a few weeks ago. His popularity in this fan base over the last probably 2 years has been dropping. I know he's a massively, massively popular player, and I think he's a good player, and I think he can get back to where he was, but I would be concerned about that if I was United and Rashford and his people around him, is that his popularity has become divisive, and that's never a good thing, and I don't really understand why it's happened. You look at Rashford around COVID and stuff, he was, the nation's darling, and he's lost it. And you don't lose that just because you're going through bad form. I mean, I've seen players go through bad form and players love it. They lift them up and they love them. I don't know what has gone on with Rashford over the last couple of years, but I see it more and more. I see it in this chat. I see it online more. And it's not exclusive to online. You see it in match day fans. You see it in older fans. There are some people who just don't, and same with Bruno as well. Abdul, I think you're right. There's just a real, and for a club that's so big on commercial and brand, they've really dropped the ball, Rashford and Bruno, and I don't really know what it is. Diesel says it's his work rate. Look, attitude, work rate, and intensity, says Renzo, and body language, giving up on the pitch, as Lightning. Yeah, I think we've all seen the clips of that. Look, I still think there's a player there. I still am not in the camp that I would sell him, and I still think that with Rashford, if he scores a goal, a lot of these problems go away. He can have 10 games where he doesn't track back, he doesn't play well, but if he scores a hat-trick in one game, all that, as an attacker, you can kill criticism by scoring goals. But that's a double-edged sword, because what we don't want him to do is keep shooting all the time, because that's the problem. Rashford, in a way, we've spoke about this before, his game without goals, I mean, as somebody in the chat said, what's the difference between McTominay and Rashford? Well, have you got all day? But in fairness, if you take goals away from McTominay, there's nothing. There's literally nothing. We've just gone through his stats. If you take goals away from Rashford, there is something, but he needs to work on those somethings. He needs to be more creative. He needs to work harder in his tracking back. He needs to be part of the build-up play. Rashford's a very talented player, but without goals, he has become a little bit... Why are you keeping Onana, says Eno? Because he's only been here 6 months, and I'm completely aware that we won't be getting rid of Onana. We're not going to get rid of Anthony either, for the same reason. Thanks everybody for watching this morning. Really appreciate it. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. We're 7 o'clock tonight because I'm doing Fulham Liverpool. Really good watch along last night. Loved that. That forum we were talking about was great. And I will say it again right at the end of the show. Make sure you check out the Gold Bridge Saved Football podcast. This is the movement for 2024. Get yourself involved with the podcast. You can download it now for free on Spotify. You can give it a listen instantly. Get into the podcast because we want this to be massive. We want to start having a say on football in a big way like we do with the United Stand, and we want you part of the podcast wherever you're from. Get involved. Love to have you part of it. And thanks to everyone who's already listening to it. We've got a really exciting stuff going on with that, and you'll certainly want to be part of it. Take care, everyone. I will speak to you a little bit later.